I live in a hot and humid environment where my dough typically ferments in 5 to 7 hours between 78 to 80 degrees Fahrenheit. Yesterday, I actually mixed my dough with ice cold water and put my dough in the fridge in between stretch and folds to cool it off so that I could do an overnight bulk ferment. I was worried I was going to wake up to a puddle of over-fermented dough, but I was pleasantly surprised. My dough bulk fermented for 11 hours on the counter. Just because wild yeast, aka sourdough starter, is most active between temperatures of 75 to 85 degrees Fahrenheit doesn't mean your dough is not going to ferment in cooler temperatures. It's just going to take longer. By using ice water to mix my dough and putting my dough in the fridge in between stretch and folds, as well as using less starter in my recipe, I was slowing down fermentation. I think people have the misconception that putting your dough or sourdough starter in the fridge kills it or stops fermentation, but all it's doing is slowing it down. Thankfully, my dough was not a soupy mess. It wasn't super sticky to the touch. It was easy to work with. It was easy to shape. It did seem like it was on the verge of being overproofed, but working with a lower temperature, your dough can rise significantly more than a warmer dough temp. And quite frankly, crumbs are very subjective. Everybody has a different preference. Some people like a really open crumb. Some people like a super tight crumb. Some people like a light, airy, and fluffy loaf. Some people prefer that it's a tiny bit more dense so that it can hold in everything that they're putting on the bread. So as long as the dough is perfectly proofed, I don't think we should be telling anyone if they have a good or a bad crumb. I think a better question to ask would be, does it taste good? I let my dough cold proof in the fridge for 3 hours, but because it had already doubled in size, I wanted to cut it off a little bit sooner rather than later. And I ended up putting my dough in the freezer for 30 minutes to harden it up just in case it was overproofed. I only do this when I've cold proofed for a short amount of time and it would be hard to score my loaf, or if I feel like it's overproofed, it tends to hold everything together and just make it easier to not pancake out in the oven. Y'all, I have gotten so lazy with roasting pans and Dutch ovens. I hate cleaning them. I hate getting them in and out of storage. So because I have a baking steel, I just decided to go ahead and open bake these 2 loaves. When I tell you I was pleasantly surprised, this got the nicest belly, the best oven spring. It was so hollow inside. It didn't burn at all on the bottom. It was just nice golden brown. It did really work well. The crumb ended up being tighter. It's also my organic spelt loaf, so that flour is very thirsty.